We're talking PGA Tour golf on the Proline TV channel. Thanks for tuning in as we take a look this week at another signature event on tour. It is actually going to be played once again at Torrey Pines. It's the Genesis Invitational. So everybody that's been checking in here should know that by now. With the fires and all that, this has been a date that we have been unfortunately waiting on. So this is going to be kind of weird, Brady. And I wonder if and I know there were players that withdrew from the first one, but I do wonder about whether there'll be advantages with some of the players that did play here a month ago. Why wouldn't there be? I know, of course, the weather could be different, but still, I maybe the players who played here before a month ago, maybe they could use it to their advantage.
Yeah. Good to be here once again, Greg. Another week of PGA Tour golf, and really what has always probably been my four favorite, tournaments as far as a swing on the PGA Tour, going from Torrey Pines to Pebble Beach to Phoenix and then to Riviera. Just absolutely fantastic to start the season. And unfortunately, of course, as you say, Pacific Palisades, where Riviera Country Club is, not up to speed, certainly, to handle a PGA Tour event. So we're back at Torrey Pines, where we just had the Farmers Insurance Open 3 weeks ago. One difference is I believe the rough is going to be thicker. They've let the rough grow. And so and obviously you have half the players in the field. This is only 72 players in the field. You mentioned it's a signature event. It's our third signature event of the season. There will be no 36-hole cut. So, rather than 150 some players in the field and a 36-hole cut, we've got 72 players in the field, no cut, and 72 of the best players in the world. So the star status of the field has been upgraded for sure. And I believe the difficulty of the golf course has been upgraded a bit because of them growing the rough out for the last few weeks in the La Jolla, California area. Now, we saw some very nasty wind hit the course on it would have been Thursday. Of course, you remember they started that tournament on Wednesday because they left the Sunday alone for the NFL, which they've done for a few years in a row now for the conference championship games that Sunday. So what was round two on Thursday is where the wind really kicked in. And some guys were unfortunate to have been on the north course side that day where the wind really took the brunt of it there on the north course, more so than it did on the south. Well, there's no north course this time. It's the south only. So you could say that was maybe tougher conditions, but like I say, we also have the more difficult rough this time around, and they are expecting rain in the area, not only today and tomorrow, but a little bit into Thursday as well. Supposed to be clear for the weekend. Nothing too crazy it looks as far as the forecast anyway, as far as wind. So it's hard to say, Greg, which version is going to be more difficult. The competition is certainly stiffer this time around. If the golf course is soft because of the rain, which it should be probably softer than last time anyway, that could be an advantage for the bigger hitters because the shorter hitters won't get as much rollout in a dry fairway as they will in a wet fairway. So, but it also helps the guys that spray the ball around a little bit. If accuracy is a tough part for your game, when the fairways are soft, they're going to keep more balls in the fairway rather than running out into that, deep rough. So there's pluses and minuses, I guess, all over the place. But the fact is, this is Torrey Pines, and it's hosted 2 U.S. Opens. The winning score a few weeks ago for Harris English was 8 under par. It's almost 7,800 yards. It's pretty much a beast any way you slice it.
Yeah, what's interesting, and by the way, of course, just to remind everybody that when we handicapped this event in the Farmers Insurance, that Brady hit it with Harris English winning. And when I was looking over, and again, you would think this would be an advantage for us as handicappers because, hey, we just saw this event. We just saw the course generally. And again, you of course noted all the little changes, but still there's a lot of similarities. So I was looking, let me take a look at the stats and see how that went. And it's very interesting because Harris English, if you looked at his stats compared to some of the other players that were like in the top 10 or top 15, I was noticing a lot of players below him with better stats, even than him. It's like he actually did really good putting, which big surprise. I mean, if you get hot with the putter, we talk about that all the time. That could be a really big advantage. But he didn't particularly have a great driving a week. He was just okay. And he didn't like hit a lot of fairways. He was just okay. And you would think that that would not be okay here, but maybe the putting, of course, bailed him out. Of course, like you said, the weather definitely was a factor and it eliminated some other players. But yeah, I just thought that, looking at those stats, I wasn't able to figure out how I could use that to our advantage.
Well, he was elite in 3 areas. And that was strokes gained approach, strokes gained putting, and scrambling. And yeah, sure, if you get a hot putter, you can kind of win anywhere, any week. But scrambling and strokes gained approach are certainly a couple of the statistical areas that I leaned on heavily here at this golf course. And you also mentioned off the tee, total driving, I think is one of the very most important things here, which is a combination of length and accuracy. And like you say, English was pretty good in that regard. Not
50
great.
50 to 60 area, yeah.
Yeah, but he was great. He was number 1 in scrambling. I mean,
Bailed
you
himself
remember
out.
if you watch the final round on Sunday, he got up and down from everywhere, and he putted fantastically as well. And then strokes gained approach. I think he was 4th in the field, if I recall, for approach play. So he had the irons going, he had the short game going, he had the putter going, and that was apparently enough for Harris English. And I think if you could, let's take a look at those 4 areas, right? Those 3, the scrambling, the putting, and the iron play, and then the total driving being the 4th. If you're really good in 3 out of those 4 areas, you're probably going to do pretty well.
Sure.
And any of the guys on my card this week, if they did really, really well in 3 out of those 4 areas, we're probably going to have a good shot to win it.
Okay. So we did this obviously with the Farmers Insurance. What I mean by that is we went over everything regarding the course and trends, things of that nature. Again, keep in mind, these are POA greens. So that's something that you might want to keep an eye on. Taking a look at some of the other trends that you saw at Torrey Pines. And that's really the only thing that we're considering. Major winners have now won 19 of the last 30. Big surprise. Very tough golf course. And usually only the best are going to survive. But we have seen some first-time players who had never played there win, including Pavon last year. 3 of the last 9, actually, made this their very first PGA Tour win. And we, of course, reminded everybody that Jon Rahm was one of them back in 2017. And that includes 2 of the last 4. So that being Luke List and Pavon in 2024. So just keep that in mind. Also, anything else that really matters other than the fact that you don't really have to be a top player. Yes, you're going to look at the majors. It's a signature event. He's going to be the best of the best usually. But, Harris English won here at Torrey, not a better field, but, he was the 75th ranked player. And 5 of the last 12 winners at Torrey Pines ranked outside the top 70. So I think you can have a little bit of, back and forth there to kind of consider.
Yeah, and you got to kind of read between the lines there a little bit too. Pavon last year was certainly an outlier because that was his first time playing the course. Now, like you say, you've had a lot of guys, grab their first ever PGA Tour win at Torrey Pines, but it hasn't necessarily been their first time playing the course. Jon Rahm was another guy in 2017, and we know what an elite player he is. In fact, he's called Torrey Pines his favorite course in the world, won the U.S. Open there in 2021. So Pavon and Rahm are really only a couple guys in the last, I don't know how many years to have won
1957.
There you go. To have won it on debut.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, guys have gotten their first tour win there, but they've also had a few laps around the track. So course history is pretty strong. And, we've talked about that recently with Phoenix, with the Sony Open, Augusta National. We'll be talking about that here shortly. guys that typically play well at that course tend to do so year in and year out, where course history is very strong. And Torrey Pines is another one of those, and Harris English. This guy was third here to Jon Rahm in 2021 at the U.S. Open, and he had done very well at the correlated courses as well. So, English certainly had some history, and, thankfully we landed on him correctly a few weeks ago. But yeah, Luke List was a guy that had some history here. Will Zalatoris has done very well here before. Justin Rose has played very well here before. It's kind of interesting. We do have, a signature status field here this week. Rory McIlroy's done pretty well here. Scotty Scheffler's done okay here. Rory McIlroy, is only his second win in the state of California, coming, a few weeks ago at Pebble Beach. He has typically not done very well in California, and Scotty Scheffler has never had a win in the state of California. So, even though those guys are the top two choices on the board, I would probably want to go with guys that have had more success at this golf course, more history at this golf course. Again, more positive course history, I think, is a strong handicapping angle you can look at Torrey Pines.
Yeah, because if you look at it, 11 of the last 14 first-time winners scored a previous top 10
there you go.
prior to winning. English had a runner-up in 2015, and 10 of the last 13 first-time winners scored 2 previous top 20s. And keep in mind, English had scored 3 previous top 15s.
Yeah.
So that's exactly along the lines of what you're talking about. You better know more. Look, last week too, Dietrich winning, had only played there once, wasn't exactly the model type of, pick for the event, but it's going to happen. And when you get a good player that is over for a win like Dietrich, you just never know when it's going to happen.
Well, how about, Greg, that, here on the show, I've been on Dietrich twice already this season. And of course I wasn't last week. So no, but I mean, I think on our preview show, he's a guy I talked about that, this guy's going to win soon. Sure enough, he did it about 2 weeks later, but, he's a very, very good player, and he's been on both the DP World Tour and the PGA Tour for a while, and he's been knocking at the door for a while. I think the last couple of seasons, or the last season and a half, has probably been the best of his career. So congratulations to him for getting that big victory. Just a shame that I picked the wrong week to stop betting Thomas Dietrich. So.
Well, and the funny thing is he would have been a good pick this week, because there's a lot of good signs pointing.
He's done well here before too.
Yes. And a lot of other good signs as well. So, but, back to back, that's another animal.
Especially after his first win. He's not necessarily a neophyte. He's been around a while. And to finally break through, I think he would be more of a fade than a guy you'd want to back this week, because it's such that's such a monumental career occasion for what he did last week. Like I say, this is not some guy that's a young buck that doesn't know any better, that just got his first win and he's fired up. This is a guy that just really got a big monkey off his back. And I don't know if he's going to be able to repeat that type of performance here again off of what he did last week.
Keeping this in mind too, that it was the first professional win of any kind for Thomas Dietrich.
Wow.
So that's big.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe he'll do like Nick Taylor. He'll get off to a good start round one. And then, because it's just adrenaline and all that.
Yeah.
But keep this in mind, because this is important for live betting, because we talked about this with the farmers. A very good event to wait until after the first round, because you can get the 2 golf courses. And matter of fact, Oberg had that great first round, 9 under par. You probably thought this event's over. Come on. Maybe the best player on the course. He just went 9 under. It's over. Nope. I know we got ill over the weekend, but the point is on Friday, he kind of came back to earth again on another different course. And that's not going to be the case here, as you said. So don't look at those. That's one thing I wouldn't really look at, are any of the, live betting trends that you normally get at Torrey, because again, there's no North Course, which would be a big thing that you have to take out of the equation.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah, you're right. No, it's only the South course, just like it was for all 4 rounds at the U.S. Open in 2021. I think the only change you might see is a little bit in the weather, some soft, and it'll depend on how much rain they get. I think they're supposed to get an inch over the course of the next 2 or 3 days, which is not a ton, but it's certainly going to soften up that golf course. And then if the wind blows a little bit, it could dry it out real quickly. So I think for live betting, you certainly don't have to deal with the north and the south combination of two courses, but I think you're going to have to deal with the weather and pay attention to that.
And as far as at this point in time, you don't see any weather that would give us any delays, do you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I saw rain in the forecast for, I believe it was today, tomorrow, and Thursday, or maybe it was tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Anyway, the next 2-3 days.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. Yep.
And I don't know if they're necessarily calling for, heavy showers. An inch in 3 days is not a ton, I guess. It's significant, but not a ton.
Yeah.
And we know these golf courses, they're able to control things pretty well where they can get it to where they want it pretty easily. They're not going to be able to completely dry this thing out. And you'll have cloud cover and that type of thing along the coast, and that, will keep things moist. But over the weekend, the rain is supposed to go away, and it could be very different. So the live wagering is something you're going to have to pay attention to the weather for in this go round for the Genesis Invitational, I believe.
Yeah, keep an eye on that for sure. Those first couple of days, because there'll be, as Brady said, there'll be rain, a little heavier wind. But then the weekend, the wind drops down, no rain. But definitely Thursday and Friday, you never know. You take a look at the forecast, and then maybe one of the two groups, day and afternoon tee times, might be there to have an advantage or not. Okay.
You know what's, Greg, real quick, also interesting, we're talking about live betting and which direction is this going to go. And, it was just 3 weeks ago that Harris English won this with a winning score of 8 under par. Well, here at the Superbook, Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas, the proposition bet that you can make this week on what the winning score will be is 8.5 under par. So you can go, more. So, I mean, they're basically saying that this is going to play about the same level of difficulty that it did a few weeks ago. And you have a much better field as far as star power. So it's kind of interesting that we're right back where we started. Like I said, all the pros and cons as far as weather and conditions and rough. Okay, so 8 or 9 under par is your winning score. We'll see if that holds up.
And I'm completely fine with that. I think the tougher the better. 8 or 9 is fine. We don't get too crazy. Even 11, 12 is probably pretty good too, but we'll see how it works out. Okay. So first off, let's take a look at our picks, and then we're going to go through them on the board. So you do not have any heads-to-heads this week. You've got outrights and top 20 finish. Any particular reason why no head-to-heads?
I didn't really love any. First of all, it's been a couple of weeks. I played the head-to-heads, I believe, for 3 straight weeks and went 2-1 the first week. And then I think I was 0-2 the last 2 weeks. So I may just want to take a step back there a little bit and reassess what I'm doing. But, with a limited field, you have a limited number of options, and there just were not any that really jumped out at me. I think there's some guys in this field that you would think are going to do well, but I'm not sure if it's going to go the other direction. And some other guys in this field, so I didn't have a great feel for the matchups. There's a lot of different shops that offer different matchups. Sometimes you can find this player versus that player, and in another sports book, it'll be that player versus this player. It's not always the same head-to-heads, but the books that I like to look at with basically the universal matchups, the ones that are most readily available, I didn't really see any that I fell in love with. And again, the history for the past couple of weeks not being successful, I figured I'd stay away. I felt real good about the 5 outright picks and their chances to finish top 20. Now, we're not getting as good of prices this week to finish top 20 because there's only 72 guys in the field.
True.
But that's okay. A winning bet's a winning bet. So, I started with Colin Morikawa at 18-1. I've seen him anywhere from about 15 to 18. 18 is the highest I've seen, and that was out here at Circus Sports in Las Vegas. And last time I checked, it had come back down to plus 1650. So it looks like it's kind of bouncing around on Morikawa. He finished fourth here at that U.S. Open in 2021. He's been as high as third here. He's a Southern California kid. He knows this course. He knows Poa annua. One of our correlated courses, Harding Park. Of course, he won the PGA Championship there. He could be hurt a little bit by the rain because he's not the longest hitter in the world, but he's not exactly short either. He gets it out there almost 300 yards, and he's deadly accurate. He's one of the most accurate drivers of the golf ball in the world. We know about the iron play, and the scrambling is outstanding as well. And you know, Greg, there's stats out there that will back this up. You know, as of about last year's Masters tournament, Morikawa has probably been the second best player in the world, only to Scottie Scheffler. So I think getting him at, 16, 17, 18 to 1 is a pretty good price. And then I went to Tommy Fleetwood at 47. Now, the risk I take here is, I shouldn't say he's never played the course, but he's never played in the Farmers Insurance. He played in the U.S. Open in 2021, and let's see, he finished 50th there. So not awful. You make the cut at a U.S. Open, that's not too bad. But he doesn't have all the experience here that a lot of the other guys do, but he has everything else. He's been tremendous at Quail Hollow. He's one of the very best. I think it was last year on tour, he ranked 7th in total driving. Very accurate, not exactly short, great iron play, tremendous short game. So he absolutely has the skill set to succeed here, and he has at some of the correlated courses. And then Maverick McNeely at 52. Last year for total driving on tour, he was 64th. He's fairly long, fairly accurate, and the short game is world-class, one of the best scramblers and putters in this entire field, and he's been playing very well. And again, another California kid who has seen tremendous success on Poa annua putting surfaces. Got him at 52, and then went even deeper to Akshay Bhatia, again, another kid who grew up in Southern California, finished 13th here on debut, did Bhatia, and also made the cut at that 2021 U.S. Open. Very accurate off the tee, and kind of similar to Fleetwood and Morikawa. Not especially long, but very accurate, good iron player, tremendous short game, who's got course history. And then finally I've played this guy 3 weeks now. Now I quit after 2 on Dietrich. Maybe the third time will be the charm on Gary Woodland, Greg. And we know the last time we were at Torrey Pines, 110 to 1 was what we nailed. And I've got Woodland at 110 to 1 as well. So maybe that's a magic number. We will see. But Woodland's had tremendous success here. He's had great success at Quail Hollow. He was second to Rory McIlroy at Harding Park in 2015 when they had the WGC match play there. So Woodland certainly has some history on the correlated courses, and he's got a couple top 10s and a few top 20s here at Torrey Pines, and one of the very best as far as driving the golf ball. He is definitely not short. He is number 1 in this field over the last 24 rounds for driving distance, and he's fairly accurate as well. So if he's going to have, it's like a few of my guys are shorter hitters and great short games, whereas Woodland is more of the power game. And if he finds a hot putter for a few days, he could find himself at the top of the leaderboard. So those are the 5 plays. Also played them each for a top 20 finish.
Yeah, Fleetwood, amazingly, still looking for his first PGA win. Amazing. 11 straight cuts worldwide he's coming in with, all top 25s. 4 of those top 5s. He was, don't forget, runner-up in the Olympics and that crazy comeback by Scottie. This is only his second PGA event this year. He was at the other signature event, Pebble, finishing 22nd. Yeah, Tommy is, it's like, so he's probably, he's up at the top almost. I mean, he's one of the top 3 or 4 players in the world right now that are completely overdue for a PGA win. It's ridiculous.
Totally. Yeah, no,
So
I like the guy. I think he's a great personality. He's a tremendous player. He just can't seem to get over the hump. And maybe Thomas Dietrich is, setting the tone here for guys being able to kick down the door and get that monkey off their back. I'd love to see Tommy get it sometime, and I'd love to see him also get it at a big time golf
yeah,
course or a big time tournament. And like I say, he has. He's done extremely well in U.S. Opens before, right? He at
yeah,
Shinnecock, he's a great U.S. Open type player, which is ball striking and total driving, and that's what you need here at a two-time U.S. Open host course in Torrey Pines. So, like I say, I'm taking a little bit of a chance. The fact that he's quote unquote never played here before. He's played the U.S. Open here. He's never played a tour event here. So I guess you would technically call it his debut, which, like you pointed out, doesn't often happen. But he certainly has the game to have success here.
sure. And McNeely, he's made 6 or 7 cuts here. Just one top 15, though, but he's coming off a 9th last week. He was 52nd earlier at the Farmers. And then Batia, he was definitely someone I was looking at as well. And, the fact that he only played here once, maybe that's similar to Dietrich. He had only played once last week at Phoenix. I think he was in the 20s, 28, maybe something like that in his only appearance. But I noticed that he is actually in the last 12 rounds on POA. He is number 1 in this field. Yeah.
Yeah. Southern California kid. I know he's familiar with the surface, and his debut here, I think it was 2023, maybe 24. He actually finished 13th. So he did really well. And then in the US Open back in 2021, he made the cut and finished 57th. So he's made his way around this golf course just fine. And I don't think we talked about him in our season preview, but he's definitely a budding star. I think this kid's really good and he's already won twice on tour, and I think he's going to win some more. I think this guy's a long way from finished.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Meanwhile, he was also 4th at the Mexico Open back in 23. One of your correlated courses. Woodland, meanwhile, has made 13 to 15 cuts with a couple of top 10s. And this year, 21st, 22nd, 16. So those are very solid. That means he's one really good round away from contending for a victory. And, I will say this, at some point this season, it'll be nice. I think even Gary would like it, that if he has a good season, continues to play well, it'd be nice. So it'd be interesting to see when the point comes in a broadcast when they stop referencing his health. That's the one thing players just, it's nice that you do it. Thank you for recognizing it, but it can get a little old,
I'm sure he wants to get past it as much as anybody.
Yeah. So anyway, if he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's definitely somebody to keep an eye on, especially at those numbers. Somebody that could be a real nice long shot pick this season, because he's still at a big number and he's playing this well at a course where he's had success. Right. So it tells you you're going to get good numbers on Gary Woodland probably all year, unless he just goes through some incredible run, which, I doubt he will. So yeah, he's somebody that's going to be a good long shot play just about any time you take him at a course where the numbers seem to make sense. So
yeah, and he's this West Coast swing, Pebble Beach, he won the U.S. Open there. He won in 2018 at Phoenix. He's had tremendous success here at Torrey. So, he I mentioned I picked him 3 times, and he's had a lot of prior success, in all these 3 courses where I've chosen it.
Now, I don't normally, and I didn't do it again this week, but I don't normally, as we've talked about many times before already, we're not going to go with these heavy favorites a lot because a couple of reasons. And one of them is the fact, not just because the way we bet, but another one is the fact that, and I say this also on the horse racing show we do, anybody can sit here and pick favorites. Anybody, Monkey can do that. So it's always good to find options, bargains, things of that nature. And again, a lot of times I'm not even going to do it myself. But I will say this, there are times that I think it's good to do it. I don't. Rory to me, it's going to be interesting this week because I just wonder whether or not because he already looks like he's in a zone. When you get world-class players in a zone, you kind of want to you don't want to think, the numbers kind of where they are, especially Scheffler 3 or 4 to 1. And we didn't even take him last week, which we thought was a perfect week to take him, and look what happened. So that's the reason. But Rory's at double the money, basically at 7 to 1. And if anybody, is like us and doesn't normally go that route, but you're wondering if this is a good week to do it, I would say yes. If you want to take Rory McIlroy this week, go ahead, because in his last 7 worldwide events, he's got 6 top 5s. He's got 2 runner-ups and 2 wins. I mean, that is as good as it gets. And as you said, and we talked about this we actually talked about this a few weeks ago before Rory won. And you mentioned it, California doesn't play well. And remember, we had just talked about the fact that he had the earliest he had ever won on the PGA Tour was the old Honda Classic. Yeah. And so he's totally ripped that trend away. So if he can do that, what else could he do? Could he win a Masters? Can he have a great year? And what I mean by a great year is 5-6 wins, at least a major, a couple signature events. So, yeah, I mean, considering he's got success here before, he's played here 3 times in just regular type of events. He's never had a bad week. He's got 2 top 5s. So, yeah, basically what I'm saying is I don't normally do this, but, if I felt, hey, you know what, this is a week where I think I'm just going to put all of my money on Rory, then I would not try to talk you out of it.
Well, I tell you what, couple things. First of all, probably my number one correlated course to Torrey Pines is Quail Hollow, and who's been, basically the owner of Quail Hollow is Rory McIlroy. I think he's won there 3 times now. So, you've certainly got that connection that makes a ton of sense. But I would also say, let's not just look at what happened at Pebble Beach and say, okay, it's going to carry over to Torrey, because there's a lot of similarities between the 2 courses as far as coastal location, Poana greens, but Pebble's a very short track. It's not even 7,000. This course is like 900 yards longer. And, and we saw Rory a little bit kind of overpower Pebble. You're not going to overpower Torrey Pines. So, just because he did it there doesn't mean he's going to do it here.
I think the good thing, though, is the fact that he had no success at Pebble before. He had played there twice. Yeah, that's never a great point. Didn't do anything there, and here he's able to take advantage of his driving. He's like the best player in the world as far as accuracy and length. So, it does make sense that he has his biggest
weapon.
Here.
His biggest weapon is the driver, and that's a good place to start here at Torrey Pines.
But yes, again, it's 7 to 1, so it's something that you definitely have to keep an eye on. Okay. Just a couple of notes here. So Oberg, he is not really getting into a groove. I looked at some of his stats, and he's kind of off a little bit.
Well, he's been sick, He
had the 2 rounds, and who knows how much that put his stats down. Correct.
I wanted to take a shot with him here because we know he obviously knows how to play this golf course very well. But I'm just not sure if he's 100% healthy yet. We saw him go sideways here a few weeks ago when he came down with the flu. He withdrew from Pebble Beach, and now he's been off for a couple weeks. So is he back ready to go? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he does very well, but I just don't know his health status. So I stayed away.
And keep in mind that the 63 was on the North course. So keep that in mind. Again, the weekend he was ill. Sungjae Im, he has a very good resume here. Last 4 years, he's got 2 fourths and a 6th, 6 of 7 cuts made. But keep this in mind too. Sungjae Im does not have a PGA win since the Shriners in 2021. That's I'm sure not a lot of people wouldn't have guessed that. But in this group here, I do have 3 of my players. I've got Pendrith, I've got Lowry, and I've got McIntyre. And to me, they were Lowry and Pendrith were the easiest for me to take, especially Pendrith. He was 30 to 1 on one of my books yesterday, and I was like, well, that's a little bit too low. He's with the big boys, but I've seen him now drop back to the 35, 40 to 1 number, which is really where he should be. But boy, does he check a lot of boxes. And we talked about him in the beginning of the season with our season preview a couple weeks ago as well. I mean, he's the last 2 showings here, including last month, top 10s. He has made 16 straight cuts. 6 of those are top 10s, a couple top 5s. In the 2 California events, he was 9th and 7th. In his last 12 rounds here, he has actually been very good overall as far as if you take a look at like certain models, strokes gained, fairways, things of that nature. He's also been putting very well on POA over his last 12 rounds. He's one of the top drivers on tour this year. There's so many boxes to check here for Pendrith. The only thing I was a little bit concerned with were his odds, but to me, I think, and he also has to get into one of those situations where he gets away like Corey Connors. We talked about him last week. At some point, it would be nice if Taylor goes out and grabs a win. So don't just start to get into this situation that your fellow Canadian has gotten into, where a lot of top 10s and a lot of top 20 go out and get a win. And that's what he has to do now. He just had a win, but go get another one. Show us that you're going to actually have a good year and put all these stats to use. So,
well, I think he's really starting to come into probably the prime of his career. Like you say, he did get a win last year. I think that was in May or June. I know it was at the Byron Nelson. And we've seen that good play continue. Absolutely, you have one of the best drivers of the golf ball here, tremendous in total driving. All 3 of those guys really are very good in total driving. Now, Pendrith is more of a bomber, whereas McIntyre and Lowry are more good in total driving because of accuracy and not necessarily length. But you've also got tremendous short games with Lowry and McIntyre as well. Probably an even better short game duo than Pendrith, despite Pendrith being a pretty darn good putter. But all 3 of those guys make sense for a number of reasons. And I believe Lowry did pretty well here just a few weeks ago, if I recall.
No, actually, that was Pebble.
Oh, right. That's right. He finished second to Rory. Yes.
He had a 72 in the first round on the South course, and then a 75 on the North course. And that put him off. That made him miss the cut. But he has,
draw bias there too, because the wind, if you played that second round on the North, you got the worst of the wind.
Yes. And even though maybe his 75 turned out to be good, because let's keep in mind, the other reason I like both Lowry and McIntyre this week is because of the weather early. These are weather guys.
Yes, absolutely. No doubt about it.
So they're used to it. Lowry's got 9 top 15s in his last 10 worldwide. The only one was the miscut at Farmers. He was second at Pebble, as you mentioned, which is actually the last time he played. And so he also checks a lot of boxes. And McIntyre is coming off a 6th last week. And he also has played, he also has a couple good results on a couple of your courses last year. He was 8th at the PGA Championship and 6th at the Mexico Open. Mm-hmm. So that really helps. Moving on down, this Rasmus Højgaard and Nikolai Højgaard combo, these brothers, they're going to be pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
Because Nikolai broke in last year. Rasmus joins him this year.
I had him at Torrey Pines last year, and he finished second to Pavone.
Okay.
I mean that
Nikolai. Yes.
Right. And now this year so far has been the year of Rasmus.
Yes.
He's been outstanding.
Jordan Spieth, you might be thinking, hey, Jordan, he came back. He's healthy. He looked good last week. Just keep in mind, this is basically his worst course statistically.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be jumping on Jordan Spieth this week. Anything's possible, but it's not a good course. But it is a good course for Will Zalatoris, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. I didn't pick him this week, but I was close to it. It's just that I don't know whether or not, sort of like Berger in a way, but I don't know. I know his injury's over with, even though you hope it is, because it was a serious one and you don't want it to come back. But he's very good on this golf course, and he's also made 7 straight cuts. And I picked him when we talked Farmers, but he withdrew from that one.
Yeah.
I like him, but I don't know. Now it's a signature event, better players, and I don't know whether or not, because I have other options, I'd rather go with. But I still think he's a good choice. So
I agree with you. Yeah, I think Zalatoris is probably going to be a good choice at Torrey Pines for the rest of his career. I think he's that type of. I really do. I think he's that type of player. He's accurate off the tee. He's a great iron player. He can handle the length of this course. I just think it's a good fit for him. And he's shown that. I was on him, of course, when he lost in a playoff to Luke List, unfortunately. But no, I think he's a guy that'll continue to play well at Torrey Pines.
And when Will gets another win, and hopefully it's this year, then watch out, because we know how talented he is. Mm-hmm. So meanwhile, Day, a 2-time champ at Torrey. The only thing is there's a couple of things off with Day's game. There are some things he's actually making up for, but his putting, his driving is off, and that's not a great week for that, even though this is a course he's usually good at. But he was just 32nd here a month ago. You are getting 45-1. It's not bad. And he's made 12 straight cuts, even though he hasn't been hitting the ball that well or putting the ball that well. But hey, you know what? All it takes is, a player of his caliber a week to kind of figure it out. And if he can do that at a place he's really, he's really good at, 45-1 may not be bad. And you took Victor Hovland a couple of weeks ago, and Victor sitting here with a 50-1 number, keeping in mind that he was second here in 2021. Mm-hmm. So that's good. He was also third last year at the PGA at Valhalla, one of your correlated courses. So Victor, I think the next step for Victor before we maybe really get to like him is let's see him get into the top 10. Let's see him get into the mix on the weekend.
I really thought about taking him here, but I couldn't find a number that I liked. And I saw some big discrepancies in different shops that I respect. I saw him as high as 60-1 and I saw him as low as 40-1. And I probably didn't want to take anything less than 50. And it worried me a little bit, like you say, we were on him a couple weeks ago at Pebble Beach, a course that he's had tremendous success at, and he's had great success here too. But I feel like what this course demands may be a little bit too much for him. By his own admission, Victor Hovland is still not in the form that he expects to be in. And he got a little bit loose with the driver at Pebble at times. And if you get loose with the driver here at Torrey, you're in trouble. So if you want to take Victor Hovland this week, I'm not going to argue with you, because we know the talent this man has, and it could show up at any moment. But I'm not sure if it's quite ready to surface, and I didn't want to take that chance at odds that were too short for my liking. But yeah, he's got great history here. The total driving is one of the absolute, mainstays of his golf game. But since this, since his game has gone sideways, so too is the accuracy and the length off the tee. But boy, when he finds it, that's going to be a big step towards him coming back to being the Victor Hovland we love and know. So, and it could show up, but he makes a bunch of sense here. I just don't know if the timing is right.
And I would also be cautious with the live betting with guys like Day or Hovland and some of these guys that are not yet there, because they could get off to a good start. They're hanging around. Maybe you could still get 10-1 or something that you think is good because they're on the top of the leaderboard. They're talented, but because they're not consistent yet, you can go chasing the money, and then all of a sudden a third round comes and they have a 75.
Right. They haven't been able to put together 4 really good days, either one of them. Certainly 2, maybe 3, but we haven't seen 4 yet.
So if you're going to take them, then, or thinking about it, and take them now. Don't wait for the live betting for the odds to drop. Henley was someone I was considering because he's got 16 straight cuts made, 18 top 15s, 4 of those top 5s, and he's trending in the right direction, 10th and 5th in his last 2, 5th at Pebble, but he's only played here once, missed a cut in 2014. It's a long course, probably doesn't work to his favor, which is the reason he hasn't played here in over 10 years. And that's kind of what scared me away, including the fact, like we talked a couple of weeks ago about Russell Henley, is he doesn't win a lot. He's always hanging around with a lot of these top 15s that we're talking about. But, if you want to bet him in the top 20, I got no problem with that. But winning, that's probably not going to happen.
Well, I tell you, another one of those times when he did not win and certainly flirted with it was in 2021 at the U.S. Open here. Now, you're right. He has not done great at the Farmers Insurance Open, but at the 2021 U.S. Open at Torrey Pines, he was the 54-hole leader.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually he might have even slipped out of the top 10. Can't remember exactly. But so he has had success here. But, again, kind of another Russell Henley situation where he was in position to win the darn thing.
Yeah.
and didn't.
He might be one of those guys that better off playing over at Live. Cut one of those rounds down. And
I mean, you look at what he's done the last couple of years. I think it was a couple of years ago he was 4th at the Masters. I mean, he's a very good player, but you're right, he just doesn't win. He hasn't gotten to the winner's circle in a long time.
And then a few other names on here hit my board: Bradley and Young. Matter of fact, Bradley was your top pick at the Farmers.
Yeah, and he got a top 20 for us. Yeah, he's had great history here.
And that's the reason why I took him. He has made 12 of 14 cuts, 5 top 20s in his last 8, runner-up just a couple of years ago. He's on a run of 5 top 15s in his last 7, 2 top 5s and a win. He's driving well. And, of course, the deal for Bradley is the putter, but if he can get hot this week, then that's all we're looking for. And he was 15th, as you mentioned, earlier this year. So I think 55-1 is a good number. Cam Young did well for me last week, so I'm sticking with him again at 60-1.
Great driver of the golf ball.
Yes, and he's actually also been putting well. Now, last week he putted well, very well, but it was Bermuda. But maybe he's got some confidence with the putter, and that's all you're hoping for, because if he can putt well, that's the thing to keep an eye on. He's only played here twice, 20th and a missed cut, but he has 6 rounds overall. One of them was a 64, and he's never had a round worse than 74 in the 6 rounds here. Also, he played well at Mexico for a couple of years, one of your courses, runner-up at Wells Fargo in 2022. He's got 4 top 15s in his last 5, including a 12th last week. So I figured why not go back to him since he did well last week. Clark and Scott were a couple of long shots I was considering. Didn't get him though. But if you look at Adam Scott, he's played here twice, a 2nd and a 10th. I'm actually wondering why he didn't come back and play more here. I'm just assuming it's early in the year. You know, he sometimes plays in Australia, and the trip was too early for him. But that was surprising because he's played well on the golf course. Driving has been an issue for him, so that's the reason why I'm not so sure. But he putts well here, and he's also on a nice run on POA. So that's the reason why I was like, we know he's not a very good putter. So anytime Adam Scott is putting well, and he's on a course that he's played, a surface that he putts well at recently, then I think you should take notice. So I was thinking about Scott. The only reason I didn't go with Clark was because he doesn't have a good history here. But if you look at it, he's kind of trending in the right direction. He got up to the great start last week, 16th overall. His driving is really strong. So, and there were a couple other things, including the fact that he's been putting well on POA lately. So he's a dangerous player. He can win at any time. He just didn't make my last cut.
Yeah, Wyndham Clark is definitely good in the total driving category. I took a look at him as well. And Adam Scott has received some pretty serious attention from some serious bettors here locally and abroad. I've seen his number come crashing down. So there's some people out there that are banking on Adam Scott to have another good run at Torrey Pines this week.
Berger at 80-1, and you might think that's high after the way he played last week, but there's a reason for that. He does not play well here. Yeah. He's missed 5 out of 7 cuts in his career. So now, and
it's funny because he's great in total driving too. But sometimes courses just don't suit your eye, and it doesn't seem to for Daniel Berger.
Now, he hasn't made 2 cuts. I think one of them was a 20th, so maybe he puts it all together this week after what happened last week, and that's possible. But again, the odds are against you. Now, here's where I think Corey Connors should be. See, they've listened to me. They've finally gotten Corey Connors down to where he should be. He had
a pretty good tournament last week. He got off to a great start, too.
Yeah.
He's a little bit like Russell Henley. I would say Henley is certainly the classier player, but it's like they're an ATM money machine. They cash a lot of top 20s, but they don't win too often.
By the way, Matthew Fitzpatrick continues to be in a bad way. So we'll see whether or not he's going to be able to get out of it at some point. I don't think he's ever played here.
I think you're getting value on Fitzpatrick though, because and I think you're going to continue to get value on him because he's a much better player than the way his game has been going as of late. And I thought it might show up in Phoenix last week because he had tremendous history there. Didn't work out. But I've seen people backing him again this week. I've seen his number come down because he's a major championship winner, not all that far removed. What was it, 3 years ago? This guy's definitely a world-class player. It's kind of like Daniel Berger and Victor Hovland. They're going to show up again here pretty soon because all three of those guys are big-time golfers.
Okay. And then as far as some other long shots that I did, look, Bezuidenhout came through for me last week. I'm going back to him. I figured why not? The putting has actually been pretty good on POA lately, so that helps. And he's actually played here. He's got 6 rounds he's played here. He's never been worse than 73. Got a couple of 69s coming off the 4th. Horschel, now I'm jumping on Horschel for a couple of reasons. He's just been okay here. Nothing great, but okay. A couple top 10s. Some of the stats to look at here that's interesting, and one is the fact that he did win at Punta Cana, one of the correlated courses. That's important. Also, he's coming off a miscut, but 2 of his recent follow-ups after a miscut in 2024, he finished 2nd and 1st. So he can come back from a miscut and perform well. So don't be taking it back. And the reason I'm going with him is last week, and you took him, and I think I was going to take him if you didn't. He was a hot name last week.
Yeah.
And how many times do we see it? Hot name, and then everybody gravitates towards a player and he doesn't perform. Yeah. You know what? Sometimes he comes back the next week and gets it when you think in the 1 week. And now his odds have dropped. People probably forgetting about him. And that's why I think he's probably not a bad gamble at 100-1, especially considering, as I mentioned, he's got to win a win, not just performed okay, but a win at one of those courses you talked about.
Yeah, he's not my favorite player for this golf course for sure. But what you're saying there, as far as like a gambling, perspective, absolutely makes sense. He was a hot commodity last week. He was very popular. And, that always scares the living what out of me, because it's a red flag when all of a sudden everybody in the world, wants to go one direction. That's usually when I want to go the other direction. Well, he missed the cut. He let everybody down. So the casual bettor is going to, throw him out. He's awful. And like you say, what's happened? Now his odds have drifted up, and now you're getting good value on Billy Horschel. So yeah, from that perspective, no doubt about it. The timing could be right.
Max Homa continues to struggle. I think he did play better on Friday, so let's hope that that's a sign. But he's just playing so poorly right now, and the odds are definitely reflecting that.
Pretty crazy for a guy that's won here before and has a tremendous amount of success in the state of California. But no, he's not going to get my vote either until I see something different out of him.
This is the perfect time of year. We all know that, right? To take him. California, as you said, this is the time. And unfortunately, he's not giving us the chance to take him. So
he's been a massive struggle. I think I saw a head-to-head matchup with him. I think it was last week in Phoenix, if I recall, where Taylor Pendrith was like plus or minus 155 or something
against
like
Homa.
that. And the take back on Homa was, plus 135 or 145 or something like that. And I was like, God, that's a crazy price. I'm pretty sure TPC Scottsdale is a course that Homa plays all the time. I think he lives in the area now, and he got crushed again. I mean, he has just been awful as of late.
Yeah. Let's hope the Friday round gets him going. And then a couple more to wrap up. Ricky plays really well at Waste Management, one of his favorite golf courses. Unfortunately, you wonder, wow, I'm very surprised that he got off to that really slow start. Well, now we know why. So he withdraws. He was ill. So that's the major thing you have to deal with this week, because you're getting a big number. I think he's down here at about 150 or something like that, which is, look, if you're looking for, unless he's already withdrawn. Oh, there he is. There he is, 120. So, yeah. So the only thing is he hasn't played particularly well lately here, but don't forget when Hideki Matsuyama won, when Brady took him at the Century, it was very similar. Hideki had a really good start to his career at the Century, And then his last like 4 or 5 trips there didn't do anything. He goes out and wins. So don't worry too much about that, because if a guy has some success on a golf course, then that helps psychologically. It obviously helped Hideki. We'll see if it helps Ricky.
Well, Ricky's had tremendous success. I think it's his first career win on tour at Quail Hollow as well, a correlated course. So
yes,
you would think he'd do well here.
Yep. And he is putting better on POA over his last 12 rounds. He's also doing well driving the ball. So 120-1. And the last guy on my board that I did pick is Justin Rose. And I just think this is
I looked at him this week too, man.
Yeah.
Hey, he did well at Pebble.
Yep.
The old man just keeps on showing up, and he's won here before. Yeah, no, it's a big price for a guy that's had a lot of success around these parts, up and down the coast of California.
Yes, he is. If you look at it now, the driving not so good, but a lot to like. 6th at the PGA last year, 9th at the PGA in 2020. So in both of the PGA Championship courses that you reference as correlated course, he's performed well at. And yeah, you're getting. And by the way, he had a 69, even though it was on the North course, but he had the 80 on the South course, and that was the weather. So I'm throwing that out.
Hey, there's no arguing. He knows this course as well as anybody in the field. And at 100, I mean, is he going to win? I don't know, but it's not a bad price to take a shot with a guy that has won here before, has been playing good golf, just had a good week at Pebble. Now, I looked at him long and hard. Didn't make my card. There's only 72 guys this week, so it's not like you can pick, 15 players. But I looked at Justin Rose for sure.
Okay, so what's going to happen now that we have all these great events and signatures, and there's got to be a slowdown, right? What's coming up over the next few weeks?
We go to Mexico next week. One of our correlated courses, Vedanta Vallarta, the Mexico Open. Tony Finau's won there before. John Rahm has had tremendous success. Of course, we won't see him there. Maverick McNeely's done well. Again, it's a correlated course that Akshay Bhatia has done well there before. Probably not going to get a big time field. You might see Finau there as a former winner. Yep. You'll have a handful of guys, but you'll probably, like a Stefan Jaeger has played very well there. Maybe Pendrith, he's done very well there in the past. So certainly there will be some guys that are bettable, I'm sure. But then after Mexico, I believe we kick off the Florida Swing with the Cognizant Classic, which of course everybody knows and loves as the Honda Classic at Palm Beach Gardens, Florida at PGA National.
I hope at some point they would get a good sponsor there to flip the bill for the signature. I would love to see that as a signature event. I'm so disappointed by their fields, because that is a tough golf course. It's a competitive golf course, and the fields are not strong enough. They deserve a lot better class of field there.
It used to be a really good field. Like all the Europeans would kind of make their debut there. Like you talked about Rory never winning anything earlier. Rory would show up. That would be the first place that Ernie Els showed up. It'd be the first place that Lowry and Fleetwood, Justin Rose, he started to come west a little later, but a lot of those European guys would show up. Padraig Harrington, who won there at the Honda Classic. Justin Thomas has had success there. Ricky Fowler. Who else? Gary Woodland has had success there. Billy Horschel. So, hopefully we get all those guys showing up. But you're right. It's certainly lost some luster. And and that had to be a surprise to everybody that the Honda sponsorship went by the wayside, because the Honda was the sponsor of that thing forever.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks. Again, next week is the Mexico Open. Don't forget to check out the links in the description so you can find out all sorts of good stuff and ways where you can connect with Brady, including Brady's preview over at golf.com, correct? That's all ready to go?
Yep, absolutely. Golf.com should be right there on the homepage. A little link off to the right that says, the plays our quote unquote gambling expert likes this week at the Genesis.
And we'll have a link in the description for that as well. Probably pin that to the description area, the comment section. Don't forget, comment. We like the comments. Let us know what's on your mind, anything at all. And don't forget also to subscribe here, like and share. All that stuff really helps us support the channel, support the show, and gets us to keep bringing back all this really cool information so you can win on the PGA Tour in 2025. For Brady Cannon, I'm Greg DePalma. We'll see you next time right here on our golf coverage on Proline TV.